It's time to talk hockey with the Utah Mammoth and NHL Insider on KSLSports.com. Cole Bagley on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Jacob in 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. It is time to talk some Mammoth hockey. Covers the Mammoth for KSLSports.com. He's our buddy Cole Bagley. What's going on, Cole?
Not much. How are you guys doing?
We're doing terrific. Cole, you sound nice and clear on the stream. Probably see you on the YouTube stream as well. Very nice win last night for the Mammoth. In fact, they split 2 of 3 on this road trip in New York and New Jersey. What did you make of the last week?
Yeah, I mean, a successful road trip, right? Anytime that you can win 2 out of 3, even when you lose a game in the fashion that they did to the New Jersey Devils, to pick up 4 out of 6 points is huge. And that was a big game. Both, all the players, said that after the game. Andre Tourney had mentioned how important that game was for them. And, yesterday when Bill Armstrong was on with Hans and Scotty, he mentioned how big of a game that was, because it sets them up really well going into this next homestand, where I believe it's 7 straight, and then 10 of the next 14 going into the Olympic break are going to be on home ice. So last night was a must win, and they got it done. So now they're headed back to Salt Lake with 4 out of 6 possible points and a lot of confidence going into a critical stretch.
What does it do for Jersey specifically to bang home that game winner?
Yeah, it was big for him. Defensively this year, Jersey has struggled. Both him and Sergachev have been on the ice for quite a few goals. Obviously, they're playing against the best of the best most nights, but their plus minus is not very good. I believe collectively before last night it was negative 23. So, to have a bounce back game, against New Jersey, 2 or 3 of those goals were definitely on that top pair. Sergachev and Jersey, he kind of made some mistakes that were then exploited by the Devils. So to come back, against New York and to play as well as they did, especially after taking that late penalty for Jersey, when he came out of that box, he was a man on a mission. He almost called game in regulation, but then they go to overtime. He steps on the ice and puts himself in prime scoring position, scores one for the Mammoth, gets 2 points. And then, he shared in the post game that, he had recently lost his grandfather, and, that one was for him. So big for Jersey. I think it's been a little bit of a difficult season in terms of defensive production. So to get one offensively to secure 2 points, it's a big confidence boost for number 50.
Speaking of confidence, what do you think being named to the Olympic team does for Clayton Keller?
It's huge. This is something that Keller's been thinking about for a long time. We've had conversations with him dating back to last season, where this was one of the primary goals for him. Obviously, he's very much focused on the Mammoth of being the captain, but to be an Olympian is different. He's played for the United States for many, many years. He trained in their development program. He represented them at multiple World Juniors, and then as well at World Championships, captaining the United States to their first gold medal in 93 years this last summer. So, he certainly felt snubbed off of the 4 Nations roster a season ago. He talked about that yesterday. And so for him to earn a position on the U.S. roster, as Bill Guerin described it, it's big for him. I think it's a huge confidence boost. It helps him know that he's one of the best players in the world. If you make the United States or Canada, you're revered as a top player on a international scale. So huge for him. I know he's thrilled. I know it means a lot to him and his family. So, we'll see what he can do in Milan next month.
All right, 7 games now at home. Big, long homestand. To set a pace to make the playoffs, what do you think they need to do?
Yeah, over these next 14 games going into the break, with 10 of them at home, I think at a minimum you gotta win half. You gotta win at least 7 of those, but I think you need to probably win 9 or 10. The West right now is so close. I think from the top wild card spot down to, I think, 7th or 8th in the race is only a difference of about 4 points. And so every point right now is critical. Every point right now matters. And to, a lot of the conversations over the last few days have been not necessarily making excuses, but, recognizing how difficult the schedule's been. The Mammoth have played, I believe, the most games on the road It's been 60% of their games have been on the road. They've had a lot of long, lengthy road trips. And so for now, now the season's, now the schedule is going to soften up a bit. It's going to be a lot more favorable. And now is the time, as Coach Torney put it, to prove who they felt that they could be. You have to go into this homestand, defend home ice. And I think, if you're playing 10 at home, you probably need to win 7 of those. And then you need, over the next, 3 or 4 that you're playing on the road, you need to pick up probably at least 2. So critical stretch for Utah as they, try to go into the Olympic break, obviously in contention of a playoff spot, but being in a wild card spot coming out of that would be huge for this team, as Cooley is expected to be healthy after that break, and then going into the trade deadline, it could set Utah up to be buyers.
We're still 2 months out from the trade deadline. They did make a move last night after the win, Juuso Valimaki getting traded to the Canes. Do you expect him to be active? Do you think that's going to depend on what happens over the next 14 games, like you said, going into the Olympic break?
Yeah, I mean, we talked to Bill this offseason, and, kind of his preseason approach was that Utah would definitely be a little bit more aggressive. But I think, to your point, Ben, I think it's going to be based on how these next 14 go. If they can win 8, 9, or 10 of these and be in a pretty good spot going into the break, once they come out of it, there's only I believe a week or 2 until the trade deadline. And so, that would set them up to be buyers, right? They want to make the playoffs. They have a lot of assets. They have an ability to go into the market and see if they can't add somebody, a player or two, who they think could put them over the top in terms of making the postseason. So, yeah, it's dependent on, how this next month goes. But if they can win, 60, 70% of those games, I think, and I would expect them to be a lot more aggressive.
How much does that depend on Veggie and the goaltending?
Yeah, I mean, winning starts, between the pipes. Oftentimes the team that wins the Stanley Cup is usually the team that has the best goaltender in the postseason. And generally, the teams that are making the playoffs are teams that have top half goalies. So he's been better over the last, I'd say, 4 to 6 weeks. December was actually a really good month for him. And, it's kind of ironic. He's actually tied for the most wins of a goaltender in the NHL right now. He has played, I believe, 31 or 32 games, and, the Mammoth have now played 43. So, he's in net, most nights, but yeah, it's everything. Goaltenders are one of the biggest pieces of, winning hockey. And it's because, when you make mistakes, they're back there to bail you out. They're there to make, those unexpected saves to keep you in a game. And that's what Vejmelka did last night. Utah easily could have trailed by, 2, 3, 4 goals, especially on that power play that New York had to kind of finish out the game in the third period. Vejmelka was spectacular. And I think over these last 3, 4 games, he's really put the team in a spot to win.
Based just on paper alone, what role do you think Clayton Keller will play for the U.S. Olympic team?
Yeah, it's a good question. The United States is just so deep. To have guys like Jack Eichel, the Tkachuk brothers, Austin Matthews, incredible defensemen and McAvoy and Hughes. I mean, some of the best players in the world, some of the best players at certain positions are on this U.S. roster. And so, while it's a big deal for Keller to make the team, it's going to be interesting to see how much he plays. I mean, I expect him to play at least one game during the round robin, but as they get into knockouts, I think unless he's just playing out of his mind or if he finds a, specific role, I would kind of anticipate to maybe more so see him as a healthy scratch. And that might, not be what Mammoth fans really want to hear, but I think that's just kind of the situation. I mean, USA is so good. This is probably the best U.S. team, Olympic U.S. team that we've seen since 2002. They're stacked. From top to bottom, every position is so competitive. And, so yeah, I expect him to play a little bit. But like I said, unless he just catches fire or finds a specific role on the power play or something like that, I wouldn't be surprised if, Keller's more of a healthy scratch type situation.
Cole, we appreciate you and all of your fine work. Thanks for jumping on the show, man.
Appreciate you guys.